So do you really need a will? Is it really important? What happens if you die without a will? Well, trust me. Most people think that a will is only for somebody who's wealthy. They're, millionaires or billionaires nowadays, or I think we might even soon have our first trillionaire in the world. But bottom line is a will or an estate plan in general is important for anybody that either owns real property, has kids that are under the age of 18, or even a bank account. Because when somebody dies, typically what happens is a bank account is frozen. Now, a lot of people deal with bank accounts in different ways. The one thing you never want to do is put someone on your bank account that isn't your spouse as a joint holder of that account. Because if something were to happen in their life, you're going to end up losing your assets in that bank account. Same thing with real property. You don't ever want to use a joint tenancy with somebody that you're not married to because it can create all kinds of problems. But here's the deal. More than once in my 26 years of doing this business, which has given me the gray in my beard, pardon me, we've had situations where people have come into our office where their loved ones or parents have passed away, and they didn't have an estate plan. They didn't have a will done at all. And we had to go to court, and it was a battle. I remember one case. The mother was the second one to die, and their parents, there were 5 kids. And unfortunately, these kids had all kind of struggled financially. They didn't have a lot of money, and their mother still had a mortgage on the house. Well, we tried to fast track some things with the court, and it still took us 2 months to get an emergency order to have one of the siblings have access to the bank account to try and pay the mortgage on their mom's house. And mom didn't have much. She was kind of living Social Security check to Social Security check. So in the meantime, these 4 or 5 kids who are, living right on the edge of their financial means are trying to come up with money to pay our office and to pay something on this mortgage of their mother's home. It had quite a bit of equity and they didn't want to lose that, but they were struggling to pay the mortgage, and without a will, it took months. I think if I remember right, it took 4 or 6 months to get through that process. In the meantime, I'm sending letters to the bank saying, hey, be patient. I've got bank attorneys calling me, trying to find out how long this is going to take. And in the end, we finally did get somebody appointed. We could finally get the home sold. And we kind of had to take the first offer that came. Maybe couldn't negotiate for the best offer because we had a foreclosure looming in that situation. And now it wouldn't hurt the kids' credit, but they would have lost out potentially on a lot of the wealth that their mother had acquired and their dad in that home. So, a will, these were poor folks. They were blue-collar laborers. I took payments and then I finally got paid off when the home sold, but it was a hard thing for them to have to scrounge and come up with the money. And there were a lot of fights, where one sibling was, hey, I paid $200 last month. I can only pay $100. And everybody else, well, we can't pay more. It was really hard. It was really stressful. So listen, if you've got real property, or you have minor kids, or you've got a bank account, please get an estate plan done, because it's about compassion. It's about love. It's about helping your family deal with your death without stressing about things and hiring guys like me in a rush to get things done in a way that makes sense. But it took a lot of time, and that time was costly for them. And the other part about that is Utah has what's called intestate laws that determine who's going to get your stuff if you die without a will. And in most situations, when mom and dad have both passed away, it's going to give to all the kids equally. Well, is that fair? Maybe, maybe not. What if there's a kid that struggled that mom and dad have helped a lot while they've been alive? So they've kind of been prepaid their inheritance, if you will. If there isn't a will, that kid's going to get the same share of what's left as everybody else, unless they've got some integrity and give some to their siblings. So there's a lot of reasons that you want to avoid having to deal with intestacy. The time, the decision of who gets your stuff made by the judges and the courts and not you. And so it's about control of who's going to get your stuff. And like I said, it's about compassion and love. So if you're in a situation, you're thinking about it, or maybe you don't know if your folks have got an estate plan, we'd be happy to help. You know, for estate planning, we typically do a free consultation, or maybe you might charge $100 just to sit down and talk with us and see if we can figure out a solution that's going to be best to make sure that folks at least have a will and a couple other basic documents so that it's easier on their kids. If you need help with this, my name is Travis Christiansen here at Greater Zion Law by Boyack Christiansen. We serve all of southern Utah. We've got offices in St. George and Hurricane. Please reach out. We'd love to visit and see if we can find a way to help you avoid these problems that this family had that I just talked about.